Good morning. Welcome to United First Parish Church. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your journey, welcome to our Unitarian Universalist spiritual community. We acknowledge that we gather today on the traditional lands of the Neponset Band of the Massachusetts tribe, a people who have lived here for generations and live here to this day. Whether you are joining us in person or over Zoom, welcome. Whether you are from the Quincy area or far away, welcome. Whether this is one of your first times worshiping with us or you have been here for months or decades, welcome. And I do extend a special welcome to any first or second time visitors, folks who are still feeling new to the community. If you're comfortable, I invite you to raise your hand up high, and our ushers have a small token of welcome for you. Any first or second time visitors, welcome. And members, visitors, friends are all welcome to join us following the service for a social hour, a time of fellowship, of coffee, of snacks. We gather in the parish hall through these doors in front of you, and I'll be standing here to your right and look forward to greeting you after the service. I'm the Reverend Rebecca Froom, lead minister here at United First Parish Church, and my pronouns are she and her. I want to thank the many staff members and volunteers making today's service happen here in the sanctuary. Our greeters and ushers are Marilyn and Florence and Bill. Our live stream team is Jordan and I believe Elizabeth and Jamie. Go team, thank you. Our musicians are our music director Norman Corey and our UFPC Church Choir. Happy to have them with us. And of course, David Bosquin and McKayla Hoffman are here, our office and property manager and ministerial intern. We strive to be a welcoming community to people of all ages and abilities. If you have any questions about our space, you can speak with our ushers at the back of the sanctuary. And there you can also find hearing assistance devices, large print hymnals, and some activities for children to bring to their pews. For folks joining us online, we'll be posting hymn lyrics and words to unison readings in the chat as we go along. Now let us prepare ourselves for worship by taking a deep breath, feeling that spirit of life, that spirit of love that flows within, between, and beyond us all. And the words of our chalice lighting come to us from Nan Moore in Scotland. Let us light our chalice, symbol of the Unitarian Universalist faith tradition.
Happy spring, everyone. This morning's reading is called Tune In to the Spring Equinox by Nan Moore. Between darkness and light, we will walk together into a time where we are born together and born of each other. A time to fully feel change. Tune into the spiritual direction taken from the rhythm of nature. Tune into the natural celestial currents. Tune in and bring yourself more upright throughout the day. Tune in, planting your feet firmly on the earth. Tune in and allow your mind to be open to possibilities. Tune in to your still center where the peace lies. Tune into the peace energy within and go out into the world. Tune into your heart and connection to interbeing. Tune in to all sensing, to the warmth of the sun, to the light in the universe, to the power of the wind. Tune into the equinox, the earth, the sky, the cosmos, and just be.
Good morning, everyone. Please rise as you are willing and able, and join us in reading our congregation's covenant. The words are found in your order of service. As a free fellowship of this historic church, we unite to lift our hearts and open our minds to a larger reality, to accept, support, and encourage one another, to seek the wisdom in all religions, to cherish and sustain the web of life, and to strive for justice, compassion, and peace. And I invite you this morning to greet one another in a spirit of fellowship and peace with a wave of your hand, a hand over your heart. It's good to be together. Good morning.
And as we remain standing in body or spirit, let us lift our voices in song, hymn number 347, Gather the Spirit. You may be seated. And I invite our children and youth and Spirit Circle leaders to come up to these front pews here on my right for our message for all ages. So I wonder what is in our mystery basket this morning. And there's actually two things. One is a big thing, one is a smaller thing, and I would love for someone to help McKayla find the smaller thing. Oh, we got so many volunteers over here. Very excited. What's in it? The smaller one. Yeah, what is it? Shake it. Money. That's right. And would you mind opening it up and giving a quarter to everyone who won't swallow it? Now, our story today is about a girl named Oriana. And Oriana is turning 7. And she was so excited to turn 7. She's bringing cupcakes to school with rainbow sprinkles. And over the weekend is going to have friends from school and church and some family members go to a trampoline park where you can jump up and down and bounce off of the walls. And Oriana wondered what gifts she would get for her birthday. So after school, Oriana's moms gave her a present. She unwrapped the present and, oh goodness, it's in the mystery basket. What did she find? She found, well, goodness, hold it all the way up. And she said, it looks like really big Legos, but they have words on them. What is this? It's a money box, her mama answered. That's right, her mom added. Now that you are 7, we are going to start to give you an allowance of $1.50 a week. Every week, we are going to give you 6 quarters to put in your money box. Wow, said Oriana. So I can have my own money to buy stickers and candy and the next Princess in Black book? That's right, Mama said. But why are there 3 boxes? Do they come apart? And she looked to see if they came apart. Could you see if they come apart? Like Legos? What? They do. Why don't we let a couple different people hold them? So why are there 3 boxes, Oriana said. And her mama said, look, each box has a word on it. What do they say? Or spend, share, save. Her mom said, each time you get an allowance, you will put 2 quarters in the spend box, 2 quarters in the save box, and 2 quarters in the share box. And she asked Oriana what she thinks she would use things for. Her mama said, what do you think the spend box could be used for? And she said, oh, those things I talked about, the stickers, maybe some colored pencils. And then her mama said, what do you think we put in the other 2 boxes? And she wasn't quite sure. So her mom said, the quarters you put in the money box that says save will be used for something kind of big or special, something that feels important and costs more than a few quarters. And Oriana thought about it and said, so something like a bicycle? I would love a purple bicycle for my 8th birthday. And her mama said, that's one good idea. And we'll talk together about what kinds of things to save for. And Oriana looked at the 3rd box. What does the 3rd box say, guys? Share. And what does that mean? She asked. Her mom replied, the money that you put in the share box is to share with people or groups that are important to you and you think are doing good work in the world. Oriana thought about it and said, so like giving money to the animal shelter where we got our cat, or at church? And her mom smiled and said, that's right. So Oriana's mama then pulled out 6 quarters and said, "Happy birthday." And Oriana took the money box and put 2 quarters in the spend. Do we have 2 quarters that can go in the spend box? Like that sound. 2 quarters in the save box, and 2 quarters in the share box. "Thanks, Mom. Thanks, Mama," she said, and she gave her moms a hug. So friends, I wonder, what would you spend money on? Important things that we need that don't cost that much, like a new toothbrush, one more. I wouldn't use the money for myself. I would give it to someone who doesn't have much from the Kovach family. That wisdom. And how about the save money? What would you save for? Yeah. A new phone. Yeah. And a save for a gift for their family. Okay. And then how about the share box? What would you use the money from the share box for? Julian? Donations to this church. Yeah. Marcel, do you got something? Yeah? Maybe with time. Well, today upstairs, the grown-ups are going to be thinking about the ways that we use our money in a values-based way, and you all are going to get to learn about trees through stories and activities and art. So young ones are going to go downstairs by going back through this aisle and let us sing them on their way with the words in the order of service.
Through the sharing of our joys and sorrows, we create a sacred space where we are deeply present with ourselves and with one another. This is a time to briefly share the life milestones that lift your spirits in joy or hope, or the pains and losses that fill you with heartache. If you have a joy or sorrow to share, you're welcome to come forward, share your name, and speak at this microphone. And alternatively, you can raise your hand, and we will make sure that you get a microphone to speak where you're seated. As we begin our sharing, we light a candle of joy, knowing that a joy shared is a joy magnified. And we also light a candle of sorrow, knowing that a sorrow shared is a sorrow diminished. Let us open our hearts now to one another. A candle representing all the joys and sorrows we hold silently in our hearts. May the light of these candles and the compassion of this community remind us that wherever we are on our journeys, we are each worthy of love, and we are each able to love. Let us join together now in a spirit of meditation and prayer. Spirit of eternal love, help us radiate the love that ties the universe together in a great web of purpose. Help us extend our united heart to those who suffer physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. May they know peace. And may we also offer this same care to ourselves, to our inner heart that beats on and on. In reality, this heart is unweathered by sorrow or fear because it is encapsulated in the highest form of love. May we tap into that great spring and share its healing waters. May we share a moment of silent meditation together. Blessings to you and to our united web, dear ones. You may remain seated for the singing of our meditative hymn, number 1031 in your teal hymnal, Filled with Loving Kindness. Norman is going to play it through for us once, and then we are going to sing it 3 times through. And we will be replacing, in the first verse, we'll be singing the word, may I be well. In the second, may you be well. And in the third, may we be well. Our reading today is an excerpt from the reading Because Church by Reverend Sean Neal Barron, written for the Sunday morning worship service at the Unitarian Universalist Association's General Assembly in June 2022.
My friends used to ask me, "Why do you go to church?" After I became a minister, they stopped asking. But I never did. Why do I go to church? Church, the place that breaks my heart more than any other. The beauty of its potential obscured by the labor of reality that churches are human endeavors, not utopian. Every church I have ever been part of has never been exactly who they proclaim to be, nor exactly who I wanted or needed them to be. Why church?
I have witnessed professionals violating the trust granted to them, cloaking their deceit in the garb of spiritual language, congregational bullies allowed to rampage in the name of nice or freedom of belief, causing beloved people to step away, the pain too great to continue. I have witnessed trauma like a puppeteer, pulling the strings, compelling us to play out old stories again and again and again. Why church? Why do I keep going? Why do we keep going? The longer you stay in, the more grief you accumulate, the grief of the people who left the faith, left your church to attend another, or simply left life. And even as the joy of new people arriving rises, you look around and you realize you don't recognize anyone anymore, and wonder if that must mean it's time for you to leave too. Why church?
For it will be true that the church you join will not be the same church you leave, changed by your presence, changed by the presence of every other. That's the beauty and the magic and the heartache. There is much that changes in the life of a church. The musical stylings of generations come and go. The language and words of reverence shift. We decenter what once was assumed to be our essence to reveal the true liberatory power within. We constantly evolve and revolve around our core, that determination of love to break forth. That question, why church? There is no one answer. No one could endure a lifetime, not one that could endure a lifetime. Not one answer that is the same for each of us. Our answers are like stars, forming new constellations, guiding us in every season of life. Point us towards a simple impulse. Why church?
Well, because church. I call it the casserole reflex, that when the church hears the news of the diagnosis, of the accident, or the looming crisis of death, divorce, or disaster, somehow, even before they realize it, the casserole dish is in the oven. An instinct to care just baked in. the same reflex that taught me that when certain events happen, you don't call, you don't text, you show up. Awkwardly, sure, uncomfortable, of course, but you show up.
Why? Because church. It's the feeling we get gathered for imperfect worship, a collection of friends and strangers united by an almost indescribable promise that answers a question coded deep within us: the need to belong, to be reminded of that belongedness, the full embrace that conveys the truth that all the parts of you, the questioning parts, the doubting parts, the cynical parts, the hurt parts, are not only welcome but necessary. That if universal salvation is true for all of us, it is true for all parts of us too.
Why? Because church, it's a temporal embrace, an embrace with one arm ancestral, the other futuristic, converging together. A complex embrace holding as much pain as potential. A belonging that grounds us and orients us into time itself. A belonging that says you are a part of this unfolding story, the end of which has not been written, and here we will face it, not alone or unequipped, unprepared, unprotected. For here we have stories and practices, rituals and music, ancestors, and yes, baggage. You don't need to strike out on your own. And you don't need to make it all up by yourself. And look around. You don't have to do it alone either. For you have a people.
Why? Because church. In a society that tells me to be self-made, I need a church that tells me I exist because we are. For if the choice were independence or interdependence, there is no question I would choose the gnarly path if we can go together. And it is the church, more than any other place, that never lets me forget this.
Why? Because it's church. It's the beauty of seeing the child dedicated in the arms of their family. It's the 85-year-olds who, when the pandemic hit, became Zoom experts overnight and then taught others. I got a snap for that. Casting off the confines of the physical sanctuary for a digital cathedral, knowing that church was never a place but a people.
Why? Because church. And when my heartbreak becomes too much, caught in the cavernous gap between promise and reality, I testify that every time I mustered the courage to keep showing up, I surprised myself that I could find love over and over again in these broken people and hopeless places.
Where my brokenness doesn't disqualify me when I'm willing to put in the work. And even as certain people grate on me like sandpaper, I feel them wearing down my rough places, granting me much needed lessons in patience, compassion, forgiveness, and humility, giving me the chance to practice being human.
When I was around 8 years old, my parents helped me and my sister open our first bank account. We grabbed our piggy banks and walked 4 blocks up the hill to the closest bank and sat in the very official office with the bankers, filled out all the appropriate paperwork, and handed over what for me was about $8 and change in a mix of quarters, dimes, and dollar bills. My dad then gave us both small notebooks to use as bank ledgers for the money we had in our bank accounts and the money we had in our piggy banks at home. This tells you a lot about my father's personality, as well as my early relationship to money. I didn't have a three-part piggy bank, but to some extent, the financial model of spend, save, and share was modeled in my family. We were fortunate. We had money to spend on all of what we needed as a family and some of what we wanted. New bicycles for kids, that's something we would save for. And the grown-ups would save for new cars once or twice a decade and summer vacations. And we also learned about sharing money with people and organizations and communities that were important to us. And I especially learned this lesson at church by putting money in the offering plate, sometimes for my own piggy bank or sometimes $1 that my parents handed to me, so I had that act of sharing money. Now, by the time I was 16, I was spending money on smoothies, Manic Panic hair dye, and bus fare, full breadth of spending. And I was saving money for summer travels, a fancy camera with this thing called film, and college. And I was sharing money by pledging money to my church. It was still in the era where each pledging person had a box with 52 envelopes with their name and their pledge number written on it. And I felt so grown up when I was old enough to get my own pledge envelopes. And I put in $10 each week in that envelope and the offering plate. I'm grateful that being part of a loving and affirming faith community was part of my childhood for a zillion reasons. And I know this is not the experience everyone had in faith communities growing up, and that some of us weren't part of a faith community at all growing up. But for me, and I hope for us, church was a place where I learned the value of being able to both give and receive gifts. Gifts of money, and more than that, gifts of care. In our reading this morning, Reverend Sean Neal Barron talked about the casserole impulse, that baked-in impulse to care. I felt this as a child when my dad was hospitalized for a heart attack when I was 10, and congregants brought meals to our house every other day for the whole time that my dad was in the hospital. And I felt this impulse to care when my parents were the ones who cooked a pot of soup for another congregant or offered rides for folks to get to doctor's appointments. As a child, this giving and receiving within faith communities taught me that it's okay to ask for help when life is challenging, and it's beneficial to offer help when we're able. And within this message of giving and receiving, there was another series of important messages. There was the message that we are part of an interdependent world. None of us go it alone, even when life feels lonely. We are connected to one another in ways that we don't always see. And for me, church was a place where those interdependent relationships were made visible. I also learned that interdependent relationships don't have to be perfect in order to be valuable. There's the times that people felt resentful that they didn't receive the casserole, but that didn't keep them from baking it the next time. I learned that none of us have to be perfect in order to be accepted. In his reading, Reverend Sean describes how church is a place where we can practice being human within a beautiful, imperfect web of caring community. Today, we begin our annual stewardship drive, where we reflect on how we support our church financially and ask ourselves what financial pledge intention we'll make for the coming years starting this summer. But how do we put a dollar amount on a community that helps us practice being human? Many nonprofits are supported by a mix of individual pledges and an endowment like we are. And many of those nonprofits can put together brochures that outline their impact in clear numbers of clients or communities served. And yes, there are many tangible ways that we can summarize our impact here at United First Parish Church. We can tally up the hundreds of hours of worship services and programs, the thousands of visitors that come through our doors for historic tours of the sanctuary and presidential crypt, the thousands of books that prison book program sends to people in prison around the country, all from them having a stable place housed in this church. We can list the organizations that chose us as the venue to rent for a forum or community event. But how do we measure the impact of church being a place where we practice being human? How do we quantify those ways in which an insight we had in a Sunday service helped us to navigate a complicated family relationship? Or the way that a conversation and social hour helped us find a sense of belonging and connection when we were new to town or in a new phase of life? How do we quantify the experience of people feeling supported, challenged, inspired by our weekly Stand Out for Black Lives? Or the feeling of affirmation and acceptance when seeing the rainbow flag hanging over the porch of our parish hall? How do we measure the impact of the experience of being cared for through visits and cards, casseroles, thoughts and prayers in times of hardship and celebration? Why do we give to the church? I think a lot of the answers are in the reading we had today. It's similar to the reasons that we come to church, some of which we can't define, some which we see clearly, some which we feel deeply, though they are beyond words. We give to the church, each in our own way, because it's a place where we practice being human in interdependent community. This season, as we reflect both individually and collectively on how we use our money in values-based ways, we get to ask ourselves, what do I love about the church? This church. That doesn't erase any complicated feelings you might have about church. It doesn't erase the times that you didn't make it to church as often as you hoped you would, when you were let down by others or wonder if you yourself had let people down. Yet this is a time to shift towards that second part of Reverend Sean's reading and ask ourselves, why church? What do I love about this church? And what do I love about how this church loves our wider community? For the next month in the parish hall, we have a board where you can write down, what do I love about UFPC? Our reading told us there are as many answers as there are people. That this congregation, like all congregations, is changed and transformed by each of our presence. So this will be a time for us to get to see what one another find valuable and meaningful. Friends on the journey, we exist interdependently with one another, in a world that is beautiful and broken. Let this be a place that we honor with our time and our talent and our treasure, knowing that we need one another to practice being human, practice living with compassion, practice being carriers of love. May it be so, and blessed be. Our next hymn is Love Will Guide Us, and the words are printed in your order of service because there's two more verses than are in the hymnal itself. So many of you know the tune. I encourage you to look at the words in the order of service and jump in as you pick up the tune. Let's rise as we're willing and able to sing together.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. You are like no other being. What you can give, no other can give. To the future of our precious children, to the future of the world where we live. Hear the song of peace within you. Heed the song of peace in your heart. Spring's new beginning will lead to the harvest. Love will guide us on our way.
You may be seated. We drink from wells we did not dig, and we worship in a sanctuary we did not build. Each Sunday, we invite members and friends to share their generosity in a weekly offering. And each spring, we enter a stewardship season where we invite people to make their pledge intention for the coming year. And one of my favorite parts of stewardship season is that we invite up congregants to share a little bit about what the church means to them and why they give. So this morning, I invite Carl DeBishop, one of the co-chairs of our stewardship committee, to share his testimonial as we begin our stewardship campaign.
Good morning. One of the things that we do in the Stewardship Committee is pick a theme for the campaign for the year. And I felt like we sort of stumbled on it this year. We ended up, I don't even remember actually making a decision, but it became clear after a couple of meetings that the theme was love. That worked, that was good. But I've got the mind of a computer programmer. When you give me an abstract word, I can't help but question it and try and break it down. And love is a pretty abstract word. So I'm thinking about it. And I keep coming back to, even if you didn't grow up in a perfectly loving family, we all have an idea of what a loving family is. We know what we want to create. We know what we want to be part of. And so I'm asking myself, what is it that I love? How is it that I experience love in this community? And comparing that to the family that I grew up in and the family that I'm building, that I have built. And so the first part is like, you're just present. And I love being present here. I love walking into the building and seeing people that I know, finding out what's happening with them, and feeling their interest in my life. We're there for each other. The next part, and this sort of goes back to, I can't resist putting it in here. There's this affirmation. Love is the doctrine of this church, the search for truth, its sacrament, and service is its prayer. Well, the first thing that drew me to this church was probably the second part of that. The search for truth is its sacrament. We still do that every Sunday, every time we have a book group meeting, every time we have a small group ministry. We swim in that water, and I love that. I love that. Then sort of back to thinking about a family and a marriage and a relationship. We grow. My wife Janice challenges me to grow all the time. It's a big part of the reason that I got married to her in the first place, because she helps fill in gaps, places where I was not as sensitive as I could have been, not as aware as I could have been. It's through that relationship that I've become a more complete person, and it's through my relationships here that I've become a more complete person. And I love that. And there's something that's aspirational. If you're married, especially if you have kids, you do this not just for yourself, but because you want to put something else out there in the world. Hopefully none of you are putting on your kids that you have to make up for the failures that you have in your own life. They can stay in the past. But I know I felt like I wanted to put something out there that was going to make the world just a little bit better. I feel like I did that. And more importantly to this conversation, I feel like this church community, through its involvement with my children's lives, helped me put that better thing out into the world. So I love that. And then the last part of that affirmation. Service is our prayer. So there's two parts to that. One is, how does this congregation serve the community around us? We do that by having open doors. We do that by advocating for justice. We do that by advocating for inclusion. I know my son's lives, all of them, but particularly Ben's life as a young gay man, would have been dramatically different had he not had a place where he was recognized and seen and supported for who he was. It can be a tough world out there, and having that home is really important. So we continue to grow into that. It's aspirational, right? We see that road ahead of us, just like we see how our kids can go out in the world and make it better. And we're always driving that bus forward. The other part of service, besides how the congregation serves the community, is how I serve the congregation. One way I do that is through participating on the Board of Governors. And that ties back to part of your conversation. We come in here, we're so far from perfect. I have a real problem with procrastination. I have tried various roles on the board every few years as time allows me, and every time there's been one or two people, sometimes the minister, sometimes the chair of the board, sometimes just somebody there, sort of helps me move a little forward, get a little better. And I think every time I've served on the board, I have gotten a little better. So it's a two-way service. I serve the community serves me. We also serve through just helping with little things, being present for a spirit circle, helping with the summer chalice circles, helping with the book group. And again, these are things I take out of the book group twice as much as I have ever put in. I make friends, have relationships that are a core part of me. And then you help with, events, fellowship hour, things like that. But even with all that, you have to keep the lights on. Just like in your home, I can love Janice all I want. If we don't go to work and bring home the money, the house goes away. It all goes away. And that really is what stewardship is about. It is knowing what you love, what you value, what you want, what you aspire to, getting over that procrastination, and finding a way to make it happen with your monetary contributions and with your contributions of time and service and presence. That's what this church means to me. That's why I love it. That's why I continue to support it.
Thank you, Carl, for your words and your service in those many ways. After church in the parish hall, we'll have pledge packets for folks to take home and reflect on what they want to give in the coming year. And we are still in this year. So this morning, as we always do, we will take an offering to support the good works of United First Parish Church. Will the ushers please come forward so that offering might be joyfully given? Know that it will be gratefully received. gather in many ways in this congregation for worship and beyond. So this is our time for announcements and invitations, and I want to start with gratitudes. Last night we had our Spring Fling fundraiser, so huge shout out to the planning team, which includes Kim Dangora, Carl DeBishop, Jim Petosa, Brenda Reed, who probably isn't here, Marie-Louise Jackson-Miller, Peter Kovach, Claire Fitzmaurice. So thank you all, planning team. And thank you to the Radiators bands with Sharon and Clyde and Beth and Chris and Clyde's brother-in-law, whose name I always forget. Larry? His name is Bob. And Jamie is, and Anne-Marie and Lee from Tune In, who played the first song with the Radiators. So it was good to be together last night. Thank you all for folks who contributed to the auction and purchased things from the auction. You can read about our ongoing and upcoming programs in your announcement insert. Today in the Parish Hall, as noted, you can pick up your pledge packets and also write down something you love about UFPC on the felt board that we have near the stage. And looking further ahead, in April, we are having our annual new member ceremony on April 16th. So if you have been coming to the church for a few months or a few years and you're considering membership or know you want to join, please contact me and we can talk more about what that means and be happy to have you be part of the congregation, knowing that each of us changes the congregation by our presence. Now let's take a deep breath again, returning to that spirit of life and love. I invite you to rise as you're willing and able and place your hand over your heart. The words of our benediction are by Michael A. Schuler. If you are proud of this church, become its advocate. If you are concerned for its future, share its message. If its values resonate deep within you, give it a measure of your devotion. This church cannot survive without your faith, your confidence, your enthusiasm. Its destiny, the larger hope, rests in your hands. May we go in peace and go in love to be a blessing to the world. And I invite us to turn towards the center aisle and offer one another a shared sung benediction as we extinguish the chalice. Blessed be.